So, good morning, everyone. My name is Arafat, and I teach history on the textbook platform. So, in this session, let us discuss a very important topic of ancient Indian history, that is the decline of Indus Valley Civilization. So, the decline of the Indus Valleys is a very important topic. Um, uh, Important both for prelims as well as from mains point of view. UPSC prelims and mains point. So once again, a very good morning, everyone. So let us discuss this topic today's class. So you might be knowing that India is home to one of the greatest civilizations in the entire world. Call this as the Indus Valley Civilization. Otherwise, is also referred to as the Harappan Civilization. Harappan. So basically, India is home to this ancient most civilization entire world at the point. So this great civilization flourished in the Indian subcontinent between 2000 BC to about 19. So this great civilization flourished in the Indian subcontinent between 2000 BC to about 1900. So numerous cities came into existence in the Indian subcontinent between 2600 to about 1900 BC. To repeat, so Indus Valley Civilization is undoubtedly one of the most uh, technologically advanced civilizations of the world. Uh, those students who are asking questions, I am taking classes on a daily basis. So from Monday to Friday, I was having classes at 11:30. We would take class for about 45 minutes to about 50 minutes every day, Monday to Friday. So this class, uh, of course, you will have my classes on a daily. This is an answer to some of the student. So the point is, I was referring to the point that Indus Valley civilization undoubtedly of a technologically advanced world. It flourished in Indian subcontinent. So this civilization otherwise is also referred as Harappan civilization. Either you call this as Indus Valley civilization, otherwise Harappan civilization, one and the same. That's the point. So there were numerous cities in this civilization, such as say Harappa was one such city. This civilization. Mohenjo-daro, the city of this city. Lothal is Kalibangan. Kalibangan. The point is there were numerous cities uh, belonging to this civilization, but somehow, very mysteriously, this great civilization, declined by about 1900. So the point is, this civilization flourished in the Indian subcontinent between 2600 to about 9. By about 1900 BC, the civilization and the people who lived in the cities of Indus Valley began to desert those cities and migrate to some parts of India, other regions. At a point. Now, the topic of today's discussion is, why did this happen? Why did the Indus Valley decline? Let us answer that question. Now, let us try and understand the reasons for the decline of the civilization. So, basically, take a look at this picture. This is basically the geographical extent of the Indus Valley civilization. So basically, the Indus Valley was a no small civilization. Was spread from Kashmir in the north to say Maharashtra in the south, from western UP in the east to say Afghanistan in the west. So this was basically the geographical extent. So this was basically the geographical extent of the Indus Valley civilization. So in this entire area, the Indus Valley civilization at a point. So it's a very extensive civilization. And this civilization, so you can just take a look at this picture. This civilization was mostly spread in the present day Pakistan plus Afghanistan plus the present Indian states of say Kashmir plus say Punjab plus Haryana plus Rajasthan plus Gujarat and to some extent western parts of UP, western UP. So basically, this civilization was no small civilization. It was spread over every extent, and this civilization, this Indus Valley civilization, largely flourished on the banks of two mighty rivers. One is Indus. So let me repeat: this mighty civilization, large civilization, largely flourished on the banks of two mighty rivers. One is Indus, and second is Saraswati. So basically, this great civilization flourished on the banks of Indus plus its tributaries and Saraswati river Saraswati plus its tributary. Its tributary. So basically, this great civilization flourished on the banks of Indus and its tributaries as well as the river Saraswati and its tributaries. Take a look at this picture. Here you have the blue marked here. This is basically the Indus River. So you can see various tributaries of river Indus. So it is on the banks of Indus and its tributaries this civilization developed. This civilization also developed on the banks of river Saraswati and its tributaries. You can just take a look at dotted mark. These are basically river Saraswati and its tributaries. But river Saraswati is no longer an active river in the present time. It is no longer active. It is not active. That's the point. So river Saraswati is now a dried up river. Has now dried up. We can even now see the underground channels of this river, but river is at present a dried up river. But whereas river Indus, this river Indus is still a very active river. This river Indus largely flows in the present Pakistan. I hope I am clear. So I tried explaining to you a few points. I told you that Indus Valley civilization is one of the greatest civilizations in the entire world. It existed in the flourished. This civilization flourished in the Indian subcontinent in 2000 to 1900 BC. But very mysteriously, this great civilization declined by about 1900. Now we will to understand. We will make an attempt to understand why Indus Valley civilization declined. That's the point. That attempt we will be making in this class. So basically, various scholars, several scholars have proposed several theories. Several scholars have proposed several theories to explain the decline of the Indus Valley civilization. Basically, the scholars are not on the same page as far as the decline of Indus Valley civilization is concerned. Different scholars have given different reasons, or different scholars have suggested different reasons for the decline of the civilization. Got the point? So let us take a look at all of these theories one after the other. Basically, we have five sets of theories. One is the first is the theory of flooding, proposed by one G.F. Dales and R.L. Rakes. The second theory is with what we call as a theory of shifting course of river Indus. This theory was proposed by H.P. Lambrick. The third theory is the theory of onset of arid conditions and drying up of river Ghaggar. Theory of onset of arid conditions and drying up of river Ghaggar. proposed by two scholars named P.P. Agarwal and Sood. Fourth is the Aryan invasion theory proposed by Mortimer Wiener. The fifth is ecological degradation theory, the ecological degradation theory proposed by scholar by name Fair Service. So basically, of the five theories, of these five theories, the first four theories are referred to as catastrophic decline theories. Of the five theories, the first four theories are referred to as catastrophic decline theory. Basically, the first four theories suggested that due to some catastrophic events, all of a sudden the Indus Valley civilization declined in about 9. First four theories suggested that due to some sudden catastrophic events that the Indus Valley civilization declined by about 1950. The fifth theory, on the other hand, is referred to as a gradual decline theory. Gradual decline. So the fifth theory suggested that the decline of Indus Valley civilization uh, was not a sudden phenomena. The fifth theory suggested that the decline of Indus Valley civilization uh, occurred over a period of time, and it suggested that by about 1950, the entire Indus Valley civilization was deserted. That was the summary of the fifth theory. Now let us spend time discussing about each of these theories in detail. Let us understand each of these theories in some detail. Okay, point. The first theory I just told you is referred to as the theory of flooding. The theory of flooding. And this theory was proposed by scholar by name G.F. Dales. G.F. Dales proposed this particular theory. Point. So I already told you that many of the cities of Indus Valley civilization were located on the banks of the mighty river Indus and its tributaries. I just discussed that point with you. I told you uh, that many of the cities of Indus Valley civilization were located on the banks of mighty river Indus and its tributaries. That's the point. Indus is no small river; it is a very mighty river. So the point is, G.F. Dales, during his investigation of the Indus cities, particularly this G.F. Dales, uh, uh, was involved in the excavation work of Mohenjo-daro. Mohenjo-daro, I told you, is a city of Indus Valley civilization. So G.F. Dales was involved in the excavation work at Mohenjo-daro, and G.F. Dales, during his investigation at Mohenjo-daro, found that uh, that the city of Mohenjo-daro was flooded thrice in its life. Point is, Mohenjo-daro. Uh, point is, G.F. Dales was involved in the excavation of Daro, which is basically Indus Valley city. So this Mohenjo-daro is located on the banks of the river Indus. Is basically located on the banks of the river Indus. And during the excavations at Mohenjo-daro, G.F. Dales found evidence that the city of Mohenjo was flooded thrice in its lifetime. This evidence he found when he was carrying out the excavation work at Mohenjo. So therefore, G.F. Dales suggested that the people of Mohenjo-daro might have got fed up with the recurrent phenomena of flooding, and hence they might have deserted Mohenjo-daro, might have moved to some other parts of India. So what was the argument of G.F. Dales? Basically, G.F. Dales argued that the people of Mohenjo-daro might have got fed up with the recurrent phenomena of flooding, and hence they deserted Mohenjo-daro and migrated to some other parts of the Indian subcontinent. Was the argument proposed by G.F. So basically, G.F. Dales did not carry out uh, the investigation in other cities of the India. G.F. Dales came to this conclusion only on the basis of the evidence from just one city of Indus Valley civilization, that is Mohenjo-daro. So the point is G.F. Dales merely carried out the excavation work. He was involved in the excavation of only one city of Indus Valley civilization, that is Mohenjo-daro. So uh, and during his investigations at Mohenjo-daro, he found that the city of Mohenjo-daro was flooded thrice in his lifetime. At a point that made him to argue that possibly the same situation might have existed in other cities of Indus Valley. Therefore, he argued that the people might have got fed up with the recurrent phenomena of flooding that made them to uh, desert those cities and migrate to some parts of India. Was the theory proposed by of Dale. Kindly remember this particular. Then we have one more scholar by name R.L. Rakes. Rakes basically he carried forward the flooding theory proposed by Dales. You know what the flooding theory is, which we just discussed. Rakes, on the other hand, he carried forward the theory of flooding proposed by Dales. Dales. Basically, Rakes argued that the Indus Valley cities declined not just due to flooding, but also due to prolonged submergence of the Indus Valley cities. Basically, Rakes, his R. Real Rakes was of the opinion that the Indus Valley cities declined not just due to flooding, but due to uh, prolonged submergence of the Indus Valley cities uh, is responsible for the decline of the Indus Valley cities. That was Indus Valley civilization cities. Was the argument presented by R.L. Let me repeat this once again to you. What was the argument of R.L. Riggs? Riggs basically argued that flooding accompanied by prolonged submergence of the Indus cities is responsible for the decline of Indus civilization. Was the argument. So let us go into the details of this theory proposed by R.L. Riggs. Riggs basically argued. Take a look at this picture. So take a look at this picture. So basically, this is basically the Indus River. So basically, Riggs argued that the Indus region, that is the Indus region, I am referring to region where Indus River flows. Riggs basically argued that the Indus region is an earthquake-prone region. R.L. Riggs basically argued that the Indus region is basically an earthquake-prone region, and as a result, he argued due to frequent earthquakes, uh, there was a substantial increase in the level of floodplains in the lower Indus region. Let us understand what this lower Indus region is. Basically, this is the course of river Indus. This is a river Indus. So this upper reaches of river Indus refers to the place where the river originates. So this middle reaches basically refers to the the mid region of river Indus. Place the middle regions where the river Indus flows, and the lower reaches refers to the region where river water merges with the sea. So basically, take a look at this picture. So basically, these are the upper reaches of Indus. These are the middle reaches of Indus. These are the lower reaches of Indus. The lower reaches the region where river finally merges with the sea. This is basically the Arabian Sea. So basically, Rakes argued that due to Rakes basically argued that the Indus region is an earthquake prone region, and therefore he argued that due to frequent earthquakes, there was a rise in the level of floodplains in the lower Indus region. What is lower Indus? This is basically the lower Indus. This is basically the lower Indus region. Basically the lower Indus. So basically, Rates argued that due to recurrent uh, earthquakes, due to free earthquakes, the floodplains of the lower Indus region, the height of the floodplains of the lower Indus region increased substantially. So basically, he argued that the height of this region increased substantially. The height of this region increased substantially, and as a result, he argued a bund-like structure, bund, bund-like structure came into existence in the lower Indus region. Bund is basically, uh, basically you must be knowing what we by bund. Bund is a structure which basically stops the flow of the water at a point. So basically, Riggs argued that due to recurrent earthquakes, the height of the lower Indus substantially, and a bund-like structure came into existence. So therefore, because of this bund-like structure, the lower Indus, Riggs argued that the river waters uh, began to pile up. Basically, the river was not able to discharge itself into the sea. River waters, they were not able to discharge itself into the sea, and gradually the level of water all along the course of the river began to increase. So basically, this is course of the river. This is basically the course of the river. When water is not able to discharge properly itself into the sea, so what happens is gradually the water level begins to increase all along the course of the. So the level of water all along the course of the river began to increase. And since most of the Indus Valley cities were located on the banks of the river Indus, the river waters began to enter the cities and began to flood the cities. And this is not merely a temporary flooding. Uh, the flooding continued for a substantially longer period of time. So, what was the argument of Rakes? Basically, Rakes argued that because of the coming into existence of a bundle-like structure in the lower Indus region, the river water was not able to charge itself into the sea. As a result, the water levels began to increase all along the course of the river. And since the cities of Indus Valley Civilization were located on the banks of the river, since the Indus Valley cities were located on the banks of the river, so the river water began to enter into the cities. Therefore, the cities began to experience flooding. Rakes argued that this was not a temporary flooding, it was basically a prolonged submergence of the city, as the river water remained in the cities for extended periods of time. So, therefore, Rakes argued that the people of Indus Valley got fed up with the current phenomena of flooding. Therefore, they deserted those cities and migrated to some parts of the subcontinent. Was the argument proposed by R.L. Rakes. This is the theory. I hope I am clear. You don't have to remember what all details I am telling to you, but the point which I am trying to convey is you understand what the arguments of both G.F. Dales and R.L. Rakes. Take a look at this theory once again. So I told you we are discussing now in today's class 5 different theories. So far we have completed the first theory. So you know what the argument of G.F. Dales is. You also know what the argument of R.L. Riggs is. But the point is, uh, both of these theories is the flooding theories proposed by both G.F. Dales and R.L. Riggs have been criticized by the scholars. So there is a criticism against both G.F. Dales as well as R.L. Riggs. So the criticism against G.F. Dales is that he had clearly shown evidence of flooding only in city of Mohenjo-daro, not in other cities of Indus civilization. So what is the major criticism against G.F. Dales? Dales basically proposed the flooding theory on the basis of evidence of flooding coming only from one city of Indus Valley, that is Mohenjo-daro. He did not cite the evidence of flooding in other cities of India. He merely cited the evidence of only one city, that is Mohenjo-daro, to argue that the other cities of Indus Valley Civilization might have also experienced this, but he did not give proof for flooding of other cities. I hope I am clear. So the whole point which I'm trying to convey, F. Dales only suggested evidence from Mohenjo-daro to argue that the other cities of Indus Valley might have also experienced similar flooding. That's the point. So that is the major criticism against F. Dales. How about the criticism against R.L. Rakes? So basically, R.L. Rakes is criticized because Indus is no river. Indus is a mighty river. So even if a bund-like structure is formed, it would not be difficult for mighty river like Indus to breach the bund. Is the argument of a majority of the scholars. The majority of the scholars also agree that bund-like structures frequently occur in the Indus Valley. But majority of the scholars argue that Indus is no small river. Indus is a mighty river. It carries large amounts of water. And therefore, a majority of the scholars argue that even if a bund-like structure is formed, it should not be a problem. Shouldn't have been a problem for a mighty river like Indus to breach the bund, to cut the bund, is the argument proposed by a majority of the. So therefore, these are the two major criticisms against the theories proposed by G.F. Dales as well as theory proposed by R.L. Kindly remember this particular argument. So basically, the majority of the scholars have now rejected the theories proposed by both G.F. Dales and R.L. Take a look at the second theory, the theory of shifting course of river Indus. The theory of shifting course of river. This theory was proposed by H.T. Lambrick. Lambrick proposed. So Lambrick basically argued that the river Indus is a very highly unstable river. Lambrick basically argued that river Indus is highly unstable. He argued that river Indus is known for frequently changing course. Is frequently known for changing course. He even presented an evidence of shifting of river Indus. The point is, in 2006, river Indus was flowing right on the banks of Garo city, but at present in 2024, river Indus is flowing 30 kilometers away from the city of Mohenjo-daro. So basically say this is Mohenjo-daro, river Indus was flowing right on the banks of basically the city of Mohenjo-daro existed right on the banks of river Indus in 2006. But now this river Indus is flowing some 30 kilometers from the of Mohenjo-daro. That's the point. So basically, Lambrick argued that Indus is a very highly unstable river. So Lambrick argued that river Indus is course, and therefore, at present, river Indus is being 30 kilometers away from Mohenjo-daro, whereas in 2006, so the city of Mohenjo-daro was right on the banks of river Indus. This is his argument. So basically, he argued that this frequent change course of river Indus might have uh, resulted in water shortage. Uh, Point is, Lambrick argued that this tendency of the river Indus to shift its course frequently might have created water shortages to the inhabitants of the city, uh, forcing them to desert that city. So basically, what was his argument? Basically, he argued that the change in the course of the river might have resulted in a severe water shortage city, forcing them to desert the city. For example, if river Indus had changed its course and flowing in, uh, if it is flowing in uh, some other region, the people of the cities might have started experiencing severe water shortage, forcing them to desert the cities and migrate to some other. Was the argument presented by H.T. Lambrick. Call this as a shifting course of river Indus. Shifting course of river Indus, or shift in the course of river Indus. So, but the point is, even this theory is criticized by number of scholars on a number of points. So, the chief criticism against this theory is that this theory the most explains the decline of Indus Valley City, located on the banks of the river Indus and not on the banks of other. So, what is the chief criticism? The chief criticism against this theory is that theory at most describes the decline of Indus Valley cities located on the banks of the river Indus and not on the banks of other rivers. As I already told you that Indus Valley Civilization flourished on the banks of two mighty rivers. One is Indus plus its tributaries. Also, Indus Valley cities also flourished on the banks of the river Saraswati plus its tributaries. So, what was the argument of Lambrick? Lambrick basically argued that Indus River is highly unstable, and therefore people might have deserted cities located on the banks of uh, that's because of the highly unstable nature. Lambrick basically argued that the people of the Indus Valley cities uh, left those cities and migrated to some other areas. Even if we accept the theory, but the point is the Indus Valley cities were not just located on the banks alone; they were also located on the banks of India as well. Point is, Indus cities were located not just on the banks of Indus; they were located even on the banks of river as well. But the point is, by 2000, by 19, all cities of Indus Valley Civilization, whether they are located on the banks of or located on the banks of river, and to get deserted. The point is, what is the chief criticism against Lambrick? The theory of Lambrick at most explains the decline of the Indus cities located on the banks of the Indus and cities, not of the other cities of Indus Valley Civilization located on the banks of other rivers such as Saraswati. That's the chief criticism leveled against H.T. Lambrick. The third theory is what we call as the onset of arid conditions and drying up of river. Onset of arid conditions and drying up of river. This theory was proposed by two scholars, namely D.P. Agarwal and basically both of these scholars gave two sets of reasons responsible for the decline of. They suggested two sets of reasons responsible for the decline of Indus Valley civilization. The first reason is onset of arid conditions in the Indus region. Where in the Indus region, that is the region where Indus River basically The two scholars, T.P. Agarwal and Sood, argued that the Indus region is already semi-arid region. Basically, Agarwal and Sood argued that the Indus region was already arid region, but they began to argue. They argued that by about 900, 1900 BC, but they argued that by about 1900, there was a shift in the rainfall pattern in the Indus region. So the point is, the Indus region was already arid region because the amount of rainfall the Indus region is less, therefore it is a region. But they argued that by about 1900, uh, the rainfall pattern in the Indus region changed. Basically, they argued that there was a substantial reduction in rainfall in the Indus region by about 19. As a result, they argued that the Indus region turned arid. So, when the region itself became arid, it began to severely affect the agricultural operations, and therefore, the people, because their agricultural operations got severely affected, people began to desert that area and subcontinent. So basically, T.P. Agarwal and Sood came up with two sets of reasons to explain the decline of Indus Valley civilization. One reason is the onset of arid conditions. Basically, they argued that the Indus region is already a semi-arid region, but they argued that by about 1900, there was a shift in fall pattern. They argued that there was a substantial reduction fall in region, as a result of which this region became an arid region. So therefore, they began to argue. They argued that the arid conditions began to negatively affect the agricultural operations. The operations, they began to negatively affect the agricultural operation, uh, and therefore, the people of the Indus region, since the agricultural operation got affected, began to desert those areas, desert the Indus region, and to some other part of the Indian subcontinent. So this is the first reason which they suggested for the decline of Indus Valley civilization. Second reason which they suggested was a drying up of river Ghaggar. Drying up of river Ghaggar. So Ghaggar is basically a tributary of river Saraswati. This is river Saraswati. So I told you that the Indus cities not just existed on the banks of river Indus, they also existed. Some of the also existed on the banks of river Saraswati as well. But the Saraswati had numerous tributaries. One such tributary was, say, Ghaggar. Basically, this is a river and this is a river. So, numerous cities existed on the banks of a river Ghaggar. Numerous cities of Indus civilization existed on the banks of river Saraswati. So, uh, Agarwal and Sood argued that by about 1900 BC, river Ghaggar dried up. Basically, they argued that river Ghaggar in turn was getting waters from two tributaries, namely Yamuna and, say, Satluj. So listen to this carefully. Basically, uh, there were numerous Indus Valley cities on the banks of river Saraswati, point. So which is now at present a dried up river. But river Saraswati had numerous tributaries. One such tributary was Ghaggar. Ghaggar in turn had two important tributaries. One is Satluj. So this Satluj happened to be the tributary of Ghaggar. And another important tributary of Ghaggar happened to be river. So uh, basically, DP Agarwal and Sood argued that the uh, that that basically Agarwal and Sood argued that river Ghaggar began to get dried up by about 1900. So they argued that river Ghaggar dried up because river Yamuna, river Satluj changed its course, joined some other. So basically, Agarwal and Sood argued that originally Satluj and Yamuna, but by about 1950, both river Satluj and Yamuna changed its course, became the tributaries of some other rivers. For example, they argued that Satluj became the tributary, Yamuna became the tributary of Ganga. But they argued that originally Satluj and Yamuna were tributaries of river Ghaggar, but later by about 1950, due to earthquakes, due to tectonic activity, Satluj shifted its course and became the tributary of Indus. Yamuna also shifted its course and became the tributary of Ganga. So when that happened, Agarwal and Sood argued that Ghaggar river began to get dried up because river Ghaggar was originally getting its waters from Satluj and Yamuna. When Satluj and Yamuna itself changed its course, Ghaggar began to get dried up. And when Ghaggar dried up, gradually river Saraswati also began to get dried up. So basically, they argued that drying up of river Ghaggar is responsible for is the second reason responsible for the decline of the Indus Valley Civilization. The point is, when river itself dried up, the cities that existed on the banks of river and Saraswati began to experience a severe shortage of water, and therefore people began to desert those cities and migrate to some other parts of the subcontinent. I hope I am clear. So basically, Agarwal and Sood came up with two theories to explain the decline of Indus Valley Civilization. One is they argued that the onset of arid conditions in Indus region is responsible for the decline of Indus cities, particularly located in the Indus region. That is reason number one. They also suggested that the drying up of river Ghaggar, so drying up of river Ghaggar is another reason for the decline of the Indus cities. That's the point. So that was the second reason which they of Indus Valley cities. But even these theories are not free, though they present theories. They sound really good, but the point is, even their theories are not fully accepted by scholars. This was because, though they presented the theories, they could not give exact time for the onset of arid conditions in the Indus region. Chief criticism, the first criticism against their theory is they could not give an exact time for the onset of arid conditions in this region. Second, they also could not give an exact time for the drying up of river. At what point of time river Ghaggar dried up, they could not establish with evidence. It is true that river Ghaggar dried up, but when did it dried up? But at what point of time it dried up is the answer is the question which they could not properly point. Praneeth, can you be more clear? What's your which theories we are just discussing? Uh, I hope you have just joined us at the point. You can be more clearer. If you have any doubt, you are free to ask questions. So that's about the third theory. Come to fourth theory, that is the Aryan invasion theory. So the Aryan invasion. So this theory was proposed by a scholar by name Mortimer Wheeler. name is important. Remember, Mortimer Wheeler presented. So basically, Wheeler held the Aryan invasion responsible for the decline of Indus Valley Civilization. Wheeler held the Aryan invasion responsible for the decline of Indus Valley Civilization. And in support of his theory, he presented two evidences. One is the archaeological evidence, the second is the literary evidence. So basically, Wheeler held Aryans responsible for the decline of Valley civilization. In support of his theory, he presented both the archaeological evidence. He also presented literary evidence. At a point, let us understand what the archaeological evidence is. We have just discussed about Mohenjo-daro, city of Indus Valley Civilization. So during the excavations at Mohenjo-daro, numerous human skeletons with cut marks on them were found lying scattered on the streets of Mohenjo-daro. So the point is, uh, during the excavations in the of Mohenjo-daro, it was found that uh, during the excavations city of Mohenjo-daro, numerous human skeletons with cut marks on them were found lying on the streets of Mohenjo. So they were not properly buried. The human skeletons were found scattered on the streets of Mohenjo. So Wheeler held the Aryan invasion responsible for the decline of Indus Valley civilization. Basically, Wheeler argued that those skeletons were found lying on the streets because of the invasion carried out by the Aryans. Basically, Wheeler argued that the Aryans were not the natives of India. Wheeler argued that Aryans came to India from other parts of the world. He argued that the Aryans came to India with far superior weapons. He also argued that he also argued that the Aryans came to India with the chariots drawn by the horses. He argued that Aryans came to India with far superior weapons. They fought with the people of Indus Valley civilization, defeated them, and destroyed their cities. Was the argument by Mortimer Wheeler. So what did Wheeler say? Wheeler basically argued. Wheeler basically argued that the Aryans held responsible for the decline of it. Support of his theory, he presented both archaeological as well as the literary evidence. What is the archaeological evidence? I just told you when excavations were carried out the city of Mohenjo-daro, numerous human skeletons with cut marks on them were found scattered on the streets of Mohenjo-daro. Basically, Wheeler argued that these skeletons are found scattered due to the invasion carried out by the Aryans. So Wheeler argued that the Aryans came to India on their chariots drawn by the horses. He argued that the Aryans came to India with far superior weapons. They fought and defeated Valley civilization. Wheeler argued that the Aryans have also destroyed the Indus Valley cities. And it is for this reason the people of Indus Valley civilization deserted that region and migrated to the other parts of the Indian subcontinent. Was the argument presented by Mortimer Wheeler. At a point. So this is evidence number one, that is archaeological evidence. He also presented literary evidence in support of his theory. So basically, it is by and large agreed by most of the scholars that Rig Veda is a literary work of the Aryans. By and large, it is now agreed by the scholars that Rig Veda should be oldest text in the entire world, is a literary work of the Aryans, the work of the Aryans. And most of the scholars now believe that the Aryans have come to the Indian continent from Central Asia. So I made 2 points here. most of the scholars believe that Rig Veda happened to be a literary work of the Aryans, text composed by the Aryans, and most scholars now believe, and most scholars now believe that the Aryans have come from Central Asia. This is uh, this is this is uh, uh, the largely accepted theory in the academic circles. So basically, uh, in Rig Veda, there are number of shlokas that uh, that points to the point is Wheeler basically quoted few of the shlokas of Rig Veda as evidence of Aryan migration or Aryan invasion. So basically, Wheeler quoted a few shlokas of Rig Veda to suggest, uh, to argue, basically Wheeler quoted a few shlokas of Rig Veda as evidence of Aryan invasion. What Aryan invasion? So basically, uh, some shlokas of Rig Veda refer to a war fought by the Aryans at a place called as Harappa. The shlokas also refer that the war was fought by the Aryans at Harappa, which is located on the banks of river Parushni. So scholars now at present have identified this Harappa with Harappa and Parushni with the river Ravi, which is a tributary of river Indus. The whole point is, you are uh, Pranit, you are right. So basically, there are some shlokas of Rig Veda that contains reference to uh, that contain reference to a war fought by the Aryans at a place known as Harappa, located on the banks of the river Parushni. At a point. So these shlokas also refer. Uh, these shlokas also contains references uh, that during the course of the war, the Aryans have destroyed the forts. So basically, let me repeat this point once again. Let me repeat the thing. So there are some slokas of Rig Veda that points to war fought by the Aryans at a place known as the Harappa, located on the banks of the Parushni. The scholars of the present times, the present day scholars, have identified this Harappa mentioned in Veda with the present city of Harappa, and they identified river Parushni with the present river Ravi, which is a tributary of river Indus. So basically, uh, these shlokas contains references. Some of these shlokas contains references that during the course of the war, Aryans have destroyed the forts. So basically, these shlokas contains some references to the destruction of the forts by the Aryans. These shlokas of Rigveda contains references to destruction of the forts by the Aryans. But the point is, in the entire Indian subcontinent, the earliest forts were constructed only in the Indus Valley Civilization. You join both the points here, which I'm make. Rigveda contains reference for, and these shlokas of Rigveda refer to uh, the destruction of forts by the Aryans. That's the point. But in the entire Indian subcontinent, earliest forts were constructed only in the Indus Valley civilization, or the earliest fortification structures of India belong to Indus Valley civilization, belonged to Indus Valley civilization. And Rigveda contains reference to the destruction of forts, and therefore, uh, Wheeler argued that the references to the destruction of forts Rigveda are nothing but the destruction of Indus Valley city was the argument by Mortimer. Wheeler basically argued that the references what we get to the references uh, we get relating to the destruction from Rigveda is none other than the destruction of Indus only. Is the argument put forward by Mortimer. I hope I am clear. So, on both of these bases, that is, on the basis of this archaeological evidence and on the basis of the literary evidence, uh, Wheeler argued that Aryans should be held responsible for the decline of Indus Valley civilization. But the point is, even this theory is not free of criticism. Most of the scholars at present have rejected the theory of Aryan. Most of the scholars at present have rejected the theory of Aryan. The point. So it is true that Aryans have come to India from Asia. There is no denying that particular fact. The point is, the Aryans have indeed come from Asia, but we have to make a distinction between Aryan invasion and Aryan migration. Both are two different episodes. So the point is, the theory which was proposed by Mortimer Wheeler was the theory of Aryan invasion. So basically, Wheeler argued that Aryans came to India, they destroyed the Indus Valley cities, and that's the reason for the decline of Indus Valley civilization. That was his argument. But most scholars have now rejected the Aryan invasion because most scholars now believe that the Indus Valley civilization declined by about 90. Most scholars now believe that the Indus Valley civilization declined by about 1900. But now is proven beyond evidence is we have evidence now to suggest that the Aryans have come from Central Asia, but the Aryans have come to India from Central Asia from 1500 BC onward. And you kindly understand this point. So most scholars now believe that the Indus Valley, but most scholars also believe that the Aryans have come to India from Central Asia, but they started coming to India from Central Asia from 1500 BC onward. So clearly, there is a time gap of about 400 years between the decline of Indus Valley civilization. There is a time gap of about 400 years between of Indus Valley civilization and the arrival of Aryans around 1500. So, if that be the case, how can Aryans be held responsible for the decline of Valley civilization? Is the question which Mortimer Wheeler could not answer. I hope I am clear. So, don't get confused. Aryan invasion and Aryan migration are two different theories. Aryan invasion was a theory proposed by Wheeler, which at present do not have many takers. Most of the scholars have rejected the theory of Aryan invasion. Thus, according to Wheeler, Aryans invaded India by about 1950, but the current evidence suggests that the Aryan migration began from 50 onwards, whereas the Indus Valley civilization declined by about 1900 BC. It means that Indus cities declined 400 years before the Aryan migration to. If that be the case, how can Aryans be held responsible for the decline of Indus Valley civilization? No chance at all. So, on this particular point, Aryan invasion theory has been rejected by scholars. Aryan migration is by and large the most accepted theory, not Aryan theory. You kindly understand the difference between both of them. Now come to the last of the theories, ecological degradation theory proposed by Faye. ecological degradation theory. And this theory, by and large, the point is, Pranit, the current evidence what we have now indicate that the Aryans had first set their foot on the Indian subcontinent from around 15. Pranit, the whole point which I'm trying to convey, most evidence now suggests that the Aryans had first set their on the Indian around 15, not before. So for us to accept the theory of Mortimer Wheeler, uh, we shall have to change either of the two dates. We shall have to now uh, prove that the Aryans have migrated to India not in 100 BC but by 1900 BC itself. Point. Or we either have to prove that the Indus Valley Civilization declined by about 1500 BC and not by 1900. For us to completely accept the Aryan invasion theory, we shall have to prove with evidence either of the two dates. We shall have to change either of the two dates. We should either prove that the Indus Valley civilization declined by about 1500 BC and not by 900, or the migration of the Aryans happened in 1900, not by about 1500, which most of the scholars are not ready to change. So they are very clear. The current evidence which we have now suggests Indus cities declined by about 1900, definitely, and the the Aryans had first set their foot on the Indian subcontinent by about 15. Therefore, Aryans definitely cannot be held responsible. Maybe future, if we get additional information, additional evidence, we may agree to Aryan invasion, but not at this point of time. Come to the last of the theories, the theory of ecological degradation, proposed by a scholar by name Fairservice. By and large, this is the most accepted theory. By and large, the ecological degradation most accepted so far. So, what is the argument of Fairservice? Basically, uh, Fairservice argued that the people of Indus Valley civilization had gone for large scale deforestation. Basically, he argued that the people of Indus Valley civilization had resorted to large scale deforestation. So, deforestation resulted in soil erosion, was their argument, was his argument. Basically, when the tree cover, say these are the trees, when there is large tree cover, the rain first hits the tree cover, then the raindrops fall onto the soil. When there is a tree cover, when there are when there is a large tree, say these are trees, yes. So uh, when there is a large tree cover, the rainfall first hits the tree canopy, the leaves of the trees. Thereafterwards, thereafterwards, the rainwater hits the soil. So wherever there is a large tree cover, uh, soil erosion does not occur. But in case if there is no tree cover, the rainwater directly hits the soil, leading to soil erosion. This is generally what happens. This is what you study in geography. So basically, in regions where there is a deforestation, usually we also see soil erosion. But the top layer of the soil is very, very fertile. When soil erosion happens, soil itself becomes infertile. This is what usually happens as a result of soil erosion. Hope I am clear. So basically, Fairservice argued that the people of Indus Valley civilization had gone for a large scale deforestation. So therefore, he argued that deforestation resulted in soil erosion, and as a result, due to soil erosion, the soil itself became infertile. And when soil becomes infertile, the soil productivity, it means soil productivity declined. Usually, you don't see much productivity in agriculture in regions with low soil quality. Basically, when soil quality declines, the productivity in agriculture also falls. So basically, he argued that because of the infertile soil, agricultural productivity declined substantially. Soil productivity declined or agricultural productivity declined substantially. Then what happens to that eroded soil? So basically, the eroded soil, according to Fair Service, began to get deposited on the river beds. So basically, say this is a river channel. So this is a river channel at a point. So basically, Fair Service argued that the eroded soil began to get deposited on soil riverbeds. The the eroded soil began to get deposited in the riverbeds, and as a result, the water carrying capacity of the rivers also declined. So, for example, uh, initially or earlier, the river had the capacity to carry large quantities of water because of the deposition of the soil on the river beds. The water carrying capacity of the river declined substantially, and particularly during the months of monsoon, the river began to flood. The point. So the river water began to breach its banks and began to flood the cities. So basically, this is a river. So on the banks of the river, Indus cities were located. Because of uh, soil erosion, the eroded soil begins to get deposited on the riverbeds, and as a result, the water carrying capacity of the rivers declined. And particularly during monsoon months, the water in the river began to overflow. The water in the river began to breach its banks and began to enter the cities. As a result, the cities of Indus Valley Civilization began to experience flooding, and because of the recurrent phenomena of flooding, plus decreased agricultural productivity in the area, the people of the Indus Valley Civilization deserted those cities and migrated to some other parts of the Indian subcontinent. Was the argument presented by Faith Service? I hope I'm clear. So the whole point which I'm trying to convey is, uh, among all the theories presented so far, the theory proposed by Fair Service is by and large the most accepted. Other theories, there are too many problems with those theories. A point. So there are criticisms against this theories, and but against this theory, the ecological degradation, there is not much of a criticism. Got a point. So basically, these are the various theories that try to explain the factors for the decline of civilization. Any doubt, anyone? Praneeth, Atul, Palak. I hope you all have understood today's class. Keep attending on a daily basis. Uh, we will keep taking up on different topics. So that's all for today. See you in the next. Any doubts, by the way, anyone? Any doubts, anyone? Thank you. See you in the next class.